their difficulty in convincing friends and family that something is appearing in the sky, that is on a trajectory that will bring it very close to the Earth. Their concern was primarily centered around the belief that as time passes and nothing happens, that the claims of an apocalyptic event will fall by the wayside, as such claims, at least on the surface, will prove to be outlandish and unrealistic by the people that this individual is earnestly trying to convince. In an effort to provide a bit of assistance to this individual, I began listing reasons why this planet or system of planets exists, and I've come up with a series of verifiable and realistic reasons for its existence that you, as an observer of the sky, can share with your neighbors and family. Regardless of the extent of their knowledge or their lack thereof, this can be a resourceful list that can be presented without being labeled as a crackpot. After publishing more than 70 videos on this subject, I thought that maybe it would be appropriate to provide my reasons why Nibiru, Planet X, is real, and how NASA has become an unwilling accomplice in verifying its existence. I'll start with the first one that comes to mind, and probably the most compelling argument for the existence of Planet X. You have heard me talk about this before, but for the sake of those who may be novice or inexperienced regarding this subject, let's be mindful of what has already been proven to be true. NASA announced to the world in 1983 that Planet X was on the fringes of our solar system. They said it was virtually knocking at our door. The story was covered on the front page of the Washington Post and the New York Times, two of the most prestigious newspapers in the world. Soon afterwards, then-President Ronald Reagan made the declaration part of the United States national security mandate, which in political terms means he made it illegal for astronomers, scientists, government agencies, and institutions of learning from speaking publicly about this discovery. He forced this mandate because he was convinced that the public would panic if they understood that a large planetary body was entering our solar system that had the potential to cause global cataclysms on an epic scale. He convinced other nations to follow suit, and it then became top secret information, where only bits and pieces were allowed to leak out to the public. There are many stories from ancient civilizations the world over that describe a large planetary body that returns to our solar system periodically, causing destruction in the form of superfloods, earthquakes, and volcanic activity. If you take the writings of the Sumerian world, considered the cradle of civilization, and compared them to the stories spoken by the Aborigines of Australia and the teachings of Holy Scripture with respect to wormwood, you will discover that each of these stories has a similarity that cannot be considered a coincidence. And here's why. The Sumerians were the people of Babylonia who actually named this planet Nibiru, or Planet of the Crossing, and did this in their own language. One of the reasons why this is so convincing is that the Sumerians actually discovered Pluto and included it in their model of our solar system, which is in direct contradiction to the fact that our own astronomers didn't announce the discovery of Pluto until 1930. The other reason this is so convincing is that many of these civilizations have no correlation with one another, and their writings were from different time periods. And so common sense would tell you that their stories originated independently from one another. If you doubt this, then I would recommend that you read Zacharias Sitchin's books on Earth Chronicles. Now, for someone who has been labeled as a fraud or imposter by those who know absolutely nothing about this man's character. His books have sold tens of millions of copies worldwide and have been translated into more than 25 languages. This is quite an accomplishment for someone who some folks believe is a crackpot. If you have done any research, you may know why public and private astronomers alike are searching the sky for the elusive planet. In 1894, Percival Lowell, a wealthy American businessman, financed the building of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. Part of the Lowell Observatory's original mandate was to specifically look for the mysterious planet, thus establishing profound proof that America knew of its existence over 100 years ago. They searched the skies for over 30 years and thought they had found it in 1930, but it turned out to be what we call Pluto, and determined it wasn't large enough to be Planet X. This compelling piece of evidence is not widely known or talked about, but shows that certain groups within American society knew of this planet's existence and its potential for devastation. Although rarely talked about, the phenomenon of an increase in the Earth's wobble observed by the public worldwide is included in the top 5 reasons for its numbers of observations made by the public. Here's an important observation that has been reported by farmers around the world, who are consistently viewing the sky as part of their livelihood as the world's food producers. Since the year 2005, they have been noticing how the sun and the moon have been rising and setting in abnormal positions. Now, there can be no mistake about this, since their observations have been corroborated by the Inuit elders, the Eskimo civilization of the Arctic frontier. This is what they told the world just a few short years ago about the Earth wobble and the changes to our sky.
Tanali kasi malaki takasikin kabante mga tabani nito gumatana kasi malaki takasikin tabang anak kasugo kami suka gawin karuan kami wala watrap tinido kisini kaya kaya doktor sebelum mengatakan namun kaya ubaruni pawa tapawa ubaruk sebarang ubaruk sebarang mengalami tapawa pakai parak sebarang mengatakan namun isu mengataku kaya baca kita ada ukau sekali berlaki kata sekali sila nunak jawab kijak luk palangan asyik naligala ciumat kangen lalu nomanga kakau nga syukui ini cakap kisah Hari si penyuma, si penak, apa gua, nanu bulik, mau gak, sama anu ni pekat terlak si mangkalawangat, nuna jauh tanah, hingga ligala si malak silu, mau gak, dah ya macam gak, tak kasih malak si sekinak.
Sekinak tak aku sih kita aja tu. Juga nuna kecil lepas sekian paunak pada dengan akhirnya anak seorang baru, aku bar kerja. Mereka orang yang ini mana minat sekolah orang untuk yang dia orang. Kalau kau ajar yang nak tengin, ikut ngadu ni, iman orang semua yang ada, saya benar yang nak. Amma, orang semua minat, abangan marah semua kita. Kalau kau untuk yang amma kan wajib ada semua kita.
So here's what we know about the movement of Nibiru Planet X. It is an unnatural orbit. It does not reside on the galactic plane where all other normal planets reside. It enters our solar system from the galactic south. That is exactly why this system can be seen more easily from the southern hemisphere. And this is why large astronomical observatories have been built in this part of the world. There is sufficient evidence of an abnormal Earth wobble. They include unusual changes in the jet stream resulting in extreme weather-related events, an increase in tectonic stress, an increase in volcanic eruptions, and the melting of the polar ice caps, which have been thoroughly documented by leading scientists and geologists. Irrefutable photos and videos of second sun sightings the world over is another evidential link that cannot be ignored. Some will say every one of these images are indicative of lens flares, unless they can be proven without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, of course, we live in a digital age of computer graphics and technology. Some can be easily faked or misidentified as lens flares or sundogs, dust smudges, or some natural phenomenon. But many are not, and those that are not fake are usually the ones that are subsequently removed. Why would you censor them if they were in fact fakes? The censorship of Planet X information is very compelling. But if something is real and is then deleted, it can no longer be used as evidence because it will be inaccessible to the public. In the past, I have had to delete a number of profound links and videos from articles published on my media news sites because they have been removed from the internet for reasons that cannot be explained. One of the most compelling reasons for the existence of Planet X has to do with the so-called secret preparations that the world's governments have been conducting since the mid to late 1970s. I talked in length about this in my previous video, which coincidentally sparked a considerable amount of interest across social media and in the channel comments section of the video description. The preparations that are ongoing include, but are not necessarily limited to, underground sanctuaries and military installations. Stockpiling of supplies, which include food, water, seeds, weapons, ammunition, gasoline, and other pertinent necessities for survival. FEMA has constructed ready-made camps in various locations in the United States, away from coastlines. The camps are sitting there empty, but why exactly were they built? For what purpose? In China, they have constructed ghost cities within their vast interior, well away from coastal areas, populated by rural residents at the insistence of the Chinese military. The construction of camps can be interpreted as meaning one thing. They are anticipating the destruction or the elimination of large populations of their own citizens. One can determine that its purpose is to keep the impending cataclysms a secret for as long as possible. Unexplainable phenomena should be enough to convince even the most die-hard naysayer that our planet is changing exponentially. Since the beginning of the millennium, leading up to the present time, there has been a considerable increase in all of the events shown here. All of these events have one common denominator, the increase in the Earth's wobble, which can only be caused by another large magnetic influence in our solar system. But remember this one important reality. These events can be easily explained away and censored by the mainstream media and the powerful elite. The concerns of the public can be quickly quelled just by saying that these are natural events or events caused by human negligence. This then allows those in power to keep the public second-guessing, keeping them from connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture. This is where you, as a sky watcher, should use common sense and draw your own conclusions that not all of these events can be just a coincidence. One of the most compelling reasons to show that the powers that be are frantically attempting to limit public perception of a potential global cataclysm is the misrepresentation or the underreporting of large earthquakes and volcanic eruptions on a global scale. In 2003, the United States Geological Society lowered the earthquake rating system by 1 point, thus allowing them to convince the public that large earthquakes were not on the rise. This shows the USGS duplicity in the matter, and people may have noticed that almost every major earthquake in the last 10 years is immediately downgraded by this institution. This certainly shows a pattern of deceit if you follow this with any sense of concern. Volcanic eruptions are more difficult to determine, but here is something quite striking. It is estimated that there are more than 3 million fissures, volcanoes, and magma flows that litter the ocean floors worldwide, with around 3,000 on the surface. One major volcanic eruption can pour more carbon dioxide and other poisonous gas and pollution into our atmosphere in one day than all of the man-made pollution we have released into the atmosphere in the last 100 years. Consider how this would affect the environment when multiple volcanoes are erupting worldwide at the same time, and you have a recipe for disaster that could well lead to a mass extinction level event. Here is something very interesting. Many believe the comet Elenin was so named as a warning to global elitists that Nibiru had arrived in our solar system. It's believed to be an acronym for Extinction Level Event. Nibiru is near. Doomsday prophecy and channeled end-time scenarios should not be overlooked when it comes to the existence of Planet X, since much of this information comes from Scripture, which millions of people accept as the accurate description of our history and the Word of God. When we consider that the Ten Commandments and many other stories in Scripture and other texts, such as the Kabbalah, are channeled information from a higher power or source, then how can we dismiss New Age channeling out of hand? You can't believe in one form of channeling and then dismiss another simply because it wasn't included in the Bible or came afterwards. There are books about past life regressions, channeled information, and alien messages that indicate our Earth has undergone past polar shifts. Noah and the Ark is a confirmation that gives validity to this story. Are Hollywood depictions of doomsday scenarios, such as the movie Melancholia, a mere coincidence or a form of end times prophecy? Could the millions of sightings of UFOs all over the world be a warning to humanity that alien life is here for a purpose that goes beyond mere curiosity? There is an eerie similarity in scope and description in the vast amount of research about aliens and UFOs, and the channeled information from such clairvoyants and seers, such as Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce. This reason I have saved for last: the overwhelming so-called scientific evidence that polar shifts have happened in the Earth's past. From a geological standpoint, the evidence is certainly overwhelming and has been confirmed many times over, even though it has not been widely recognized in the public perspective, even though dozens of research papers and studies show this to be true. What is suspect in their findings is the reason given for these past shifts, which has nothing to do with a rogue planet or a system of planets. Here is something I want you to know when you consider each of these findings by leading scientists. Many of them are paid and supported by government grants to publish conclusions on what the government wants you to know. Therefore, the evidence is shaped to fit the theory or the idea. The same could be said of astronomers. Many of them either work for NASA or for agencies tied to government research institutions. Because of this, they can be held to the national security mandate that was implemented by President Reagan in the early 1980s. So think about that the next time you ask why so many astronomers haven't said anything about Planet X. If your livelihood is linked to an agency that wants information kept from the public, you will lie, you will falsify documents, and you will create new theories to back their agenda. I could list more reasons for the existence of Planet X, as it is all too real for me, but I want you to do some of your own research. Search the internet. Read up on book publications dating back 100 years. Or if you prefer not to read, check out the many videos and movies and documentaries on this subject. It is our best means for seeking the truth. If Planet X is an elaborate hoax designed to spread fear throughout the world, then it has to be considered as the greatest of all. I've been accused of being a fearmonger just because of what I believe in and because of my sincere desire to warn others. And that is okay. I can handle that. You see, it has to do with a more noble cause. It is a part of our spiritual orientation and development. This is the moment in our existence in which we determine whether we live to serve others or to serve ourselves. It is a matter of choice. Some of you have already seen what is coming, either through your visions and dreams of its reality, or through your diligent observations of the sky. Through your own intuition coupled with spiritual guidance, you have come to know and understand these things. Not all of us are blessed to see its existence in its physical state. And yet, because of humanity's propensity not to believe anything that they cannot see with their own eyes, then many will have a difficult time in believing what the rest of us know to be true. Even so, we shouldn't stop recognizing how all of this is affecting the earth. Many are under the false assumption that something this big or this important just couldn't be kept from the public, and that out of the goodness of their hearts, the governments would inform their citizens if this were true. But the reality is they cannot inform you, and they will never inform you. How can you possibly tell 7 billion people that something is coming that the world cannot control? The global elite will seek shelter in their underground cities, but even these places will crumble by the magnitude of what is upon us. Current research and data now suggest that we are living in a time of global flooding and devastating changes thrust upon the earth by powerful forces unknown to this generation. Understanding my reasons for the existence of a Planet X or a Nemesis system may in the long run help many of you to seek the truth as to why our planet is facing perilous times. I have come to the realization that my purpose in life, irrespective of my personal accomplishments, is and has been to be of service to others in the latter days. Here is something that I know to be true. The ancient cultures and civilizations left many clues as a warning to future generations. And this is how the powers that be knew when and where to look for that planet that we call Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. It is a matter of simply connecting the dots. Unless you are willing to give it your best effort. So here goes. If you were running the world during these trying times, and you knew that events were on the horizon which would forever alter the entire planetary civilization, Would you want the global mainstream media telling everyone? If those earth-shattering events were as unstoppable as they were fateful, would you disseminate this information? If you told them what was coming, what then would the 7 billion plus people who reside on planet Earth do the next day? That is, after you tell them that their world is about to come to an end. Will they still go to work? Will they continue to spend money? Will many of them even want to get out of bed again after they hear what is coming? Herein lies the challenge that is faced by the elite, those who control our way of life on this planet. Bear in mind that they know exactly what is around the corner. Their strategically located observatories and high-powered telescopes give them access to scientific data and astronomical phenomena, which is so compelling that they feel they have no alternative but to distract us and deceive us and divert our attention. Remember, there is one thing more than anything else which they fear. That is uncontrolled chaos. They realize that real mayhem in the streets will not treat them well. Therefore, immediate social pandemonium is their greatest worry. Unpredictable political unrest strikes fear in each of them. Uncontrollable financial instability will only serve to inhibit their control over the masses. The time is ticking away when their control over each of us begins slipping away. Now, they may have their plans in order, but their ability to control our minds will have far less influence than what they were once accustomed to. Their deep underground bunkers may not be in the most protected areas that they once thought. Their experiments with time travel and interstellar travel, wormholes and parallel universes, blank slate technology and invisibility cloaking have already proved disastrous, as this video clip suggests.
If images can move back and forth across time, maybe people and objects could time travel too. Paranormal investigators say time travel has already happened. They claim that a U.S. Navy destroyer was sent through time during World War II. In a secret experiment in the Philadelphia Navy Yard, so the story goes, a destroyer escort vessel like this one was made invisible. Its name, the USS Eldridge. The intention was to produce a radar cloaking device, but when the test began, there were very unexpected results. The date was October 1943.
October 1943, their final and most disastrous test, they applied power to the ship. The ship disappeared, enveloped in a green fog. The fog then subsided and the ship itself was gone. The Navy ordered the power to be turned off. The power was cut to the ship. The ship didn't come back. Moments later it was spotted or reportedly seen in New Folk Harbor, hundreds of kilometers from Philadelphia where it was moments before.
The effect on the crew of the Eldridge was traumatic, as Navy officers were supposed to have found as they boarded the ship.
When they got to the ship, they found that the crew was visibly disoriented, some members were vomiting, and most bizarre yet, there's stories of men actually fused to the metal in the deck, still alive.
The U.S. Navy denies the whole incident ever took place. The only witnesses to come forward have been figures of controversy. And investigators have an explanation for why the unfortunate crew were unable to talk.
After the experiment, the men were quarantined for a number of months in a naval hospital, where eventually they were discharged mentally unfit for duty. So in case the men were to talk about the experiment or any fantastic stories, the Navy could easily say, well, they're insane. We have the papers to prove it.
But the big question these days that has the undivided attention of so many individuals is the notion or the belief that something lurks within our solar system. In my video entitled The Nibiru Planet X System and Its Impact on Our Solar System, we presented a short video clip which was published many years ago called Hercolubus is Coming, which documented the professed statements of Carlos Munoz Ferrara regarding Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. He was a highly intuitive and gifted astronomer and seismologist whose findings cannot be ignored. Carlos Ferrara predicted with extraordinary accuracy numerous earthquakes in South America during the last century. He did this by making direct correlations between specific astronomical phenomena and various catastrophic earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. His most significant prediction regards the future arrival of a great comet planet. Now, for those who did not watch my recent video, I would highly recommend that you watch it when you have an opportunity. But Ferrara calls it a comet planet because it has the size of a planet, and it has also the speed and the elliptical orbit of a comet. Whether you believe or not what this video portrays is not that important. What matters is that there have been numerous prognostications of this nature over millennia, which simply can no longer be ignored in the face of such pervasive and compelling evidence. So you will say, what kind of evidence? Okay, I'm going to show you. But before we go there, it's important to point out that Latin America has produced other gifted visionaries, just like Carlos Ferrara. Here are three of those individuals who have independently referred to the future happenings described by Carlos Ferrara. Mind you that their visions and scientific observations came to fruition long before the topic of Planet X or a binary star system became a conversation of great interest across the internet and the social media outlets. V.M. Rabolu, who was born in Tolima, Colombia, in 1998 he wrote Hercolubus, or Red Planet, based on his direct and conscious experience. Rabolu described the terrible events that will happen on our planet in the short term and explains the path that the human being can follow in order to achieve a deep transformation. Hercolubus, a planet so called by the sages of antiquity, is approaching our solar system and is the cause of great concern for those who know about such cosmic phenomena. In our former encounter, Hercolubus put an end to the Atlantean civilization. These facts are duly related through the universal floods of different religions and cultures. The consequence of the very close proximity of Hercolubus will be upheaval in all corners of our planet. Benjamin Solari Paravicini was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He is considered the great Argentinian prophet, who was also nicknamed the South American Nostradamus. Decades ago, he wrote, "The hour of hours will arrive, and in its darkness the crash of the big planet will be received. The earth will be reversed. Everything will fail." Samuel Weor was born as Victor Manuel Gomez Rodriguez in Bogota, Colombia. Samuel Weor, the great Gnostic master who gave numerous lectures in Mexico during the 70s, talked about Hercolubus and explained that in the times of the end, it would approach the Earth. Due to its great electromagnetic power, he said it would destabilize the Earth's crust, causing huge earthquakes, tidal waves, volcanic eruptions, and natural disasters. Hercolubus would have approached our solar system in former occasions to unleash cataclysms that wiped out the Lemurian and the Atlantean civilizations. Now, he said, it would come again to end our civilization and allow a new era to begin. Have you ever considered why the Vatican owns and operates an observatory outside of Safford, Arizona? Not only does the Vatican operate the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope at Mount Graham International Observatory, which is located in southeast Arizona's Pinalino Mountains, they also share the same facility with the Large Binocular Telescope Observatory. The Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, also known as the VATT, is a 1.8 meter Gregorian telescope observing in the optical and the infrared. So why infrared? Because Planet X is often referred to as a brown dwarf, which has cooled down so much that it can only be detected in this range of light frequency. Construction of the MGIO began in 1989. It currently operates and maintains facilities for 3 scientific organizations. The first 2 telescopes, the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope and the Heinrich Hertz Submillimeter Telescope, began operations in 1993. The Large Binocular Telescope, one of the world's largest and most powerful telescopes, began operations using mirrors independently in 2004, with joint operations between the 2 mirrors beginning in 2008. Now, this is according to Wikipedia, the Mount Graham International Observatory information site. So that brings us to the Vatican Secret Archives. Now, the archives has probably more volumes of original documents in the form of scriptural references, as well as historical records produced by the ancients, than any other library on earth. The Roman Catholic Church is further informed about the future of humanity from the numerous Marian apparitions which have occurred around the world over the past 200 years. It is well known in certain circles that many of the prophecies which were given to mostly children have never been released by the church hierarchy because of the dire content. Why might this be the case? Because those controllers of information know that such doses of reality are simply too much for the masses to bear. Of course, they have deliberately leaked this and that information over many decades so that those who have ears to hear will receive the messages they are meant to. The Vatican is also well aware of the St. Malachi's prophecy regarding the last 10 popes, as well as those similar revelations given in various Marian apparitions. By these and other accounts, the current Pope, Francis, will be the final Roman pontiff in the tradition of the Catholic Church of Rome. One of those prognostications presents the actual context of when the current Pope would be forced to flee Rome in December when the Great Comet is seen in the daytime. One of the latest in the series of these Marian prophecies clearly indicates that huge changes are coming to planet Earth. Whenever these predictions veer into Earth change territory, They always speak of massive, unprecedented, and cataclysmic events overtaking the entire planetary realm. No location is spared except those which are preordained as safe havens for the protected portion of humanity that is to be safeguarded. Recently, I published a video that included a podcast concerning the fiery comet known as the Red Ball of Redemption, a comet that would bring great destruction upon the Earth. This was known as the Bayside Prophecy. Even the third secret of Fatima is said to concern the end times, which is why it was never officially released by the Vatican. The primary agent of such massive global change is usually referred to as a shift, specifically an axis pole shift, where the Earth actually shifts on its axis by a number of degrees. An axis pole shift is the only planet-wide geophysical event which can generate so many predicted changes. The historical record, both geological and archaeological, is replete with hard evidence of periodic planetary catastrophes. Planet X, in fact, has experienced global landmass rearrangements at the closing of eras and the conclusion of epochs since the beginning of time. As we approach the current denouncement of the Age of Conflict, also known as the Iron Age, it is certain that Mother Earth will once again turn on her axis so that the old lands can be rejuvenated and refreshed, which is deemed a necessity, so that the new lands can emerge to sustain the new race of humanity is likewise an essential byproduct of axial pole shifts. Therefore, the real question is just what kind of celestial event would provide the requisite interplanetary dynamic to precipitate a shifting of the Earth on its axis. There can be only one possible scenario for such an event to occur, and that would have to be a celestial intruder of great order that would possess all of the right stuff to cause the Earth to literally roll over and stay there as the new normal. Hence, we see more of a logical explanation than ever afforded to the various schools of thought which promote a Planet X. As you can see here, the planet of the crossing has many different names given to it. All of these names have been provided as candidates for the heavenly body, which may be responsible for both past and future catastrophes here on Earth. That's not to say that there are not other diverse possibilities when considering the various apocalyptic scenarios which the planet has been proven to undergo. However, asteroids and large meteors, gamma bursts and supernovas each have their obvious deficiencies when trying to explain an event like a pole shift. Of all of the theories which abound, and there are many on the internet, the narrative surrounding Hercolubus seems to be the most plausible. It also appears to be the one which forms the basis for all the others. Even the Nibiru story and their Anunnaki travelers seem to have originated from the Hercolubus version of earth-shaking events. It's true the Sun has been going through some major changes over the past few decades. We wonder if its a new location in the galaxy of the galactic center is enough to bring about such a profound and fundamental transformation. We also wonder if there are other galactic happenings, both seen and unseen, which may be triggering the sustaining of the Sun's new behavior. As the Sun ages, it is quite possible that it is simply entering a new phase of existence. However, there does exist an overwhelming body of evidence which points directly to the influence of a sizable planetary sphere within the outer reaches of our solar system. This would also explain many of the other recent and radical changes undergone by all of the other planets in our solar system recently. Especially one with an immense gravitational field would be required for an axis shift to occur. Such a celestial body would also have to possess other extraordinary properties and unique features in order to effectuate a pole shift, as is often foretold.
The catastrophes described in ancient sources were traumatic experiences common to all mankind. Purged from conscious memory, these records are now interpreted as allegories, metaphors, and the trauma has been submerged in the unconscious. Collective amnesia. A revolutionary theory of the universe based on the records of the past has challenged the fundamental beliefs of modern science for more than 2 decades. Today, the unexpected findings of space explorations have confirmed many of the predictions of this theory. Mountains were born and mountains collapsed. Land and sea changed places. Great streams of lava flowed. The sea boiled and evaporated. Such were the scenes of unimaginable violence during the times of global catastrophe, as recorded by the ancients.
Here in the New York Herald Tribune, Explosion in Science, the artist's conception of what happened when the heavens burst. What happened during the 1500 BC upheaval, which we read about in the Bible as the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt, and the phenomena or upheaval that accompanied that. And this is the artist's conception of what happened in Palestine and Mexico and China. Lightning, meteorites being rained down as the comet's head came closer to the earth, followed by floods. Same in Mexico, where water swept over the entire land, great gigantic tides.
There were repeated changes in the Earth's orbit, in the lengths of day, the seasons, and the year. In these catastrophes, entire species of animals were annihilated. Others proliferated from wholesale mutations. Mankind was decimated. Civilizations destroyed.
So that now brings us to the question, what is causing the dramatic and meteoric changes throughout the solar system? The planets, all of them, have been experiencing unparalleled and dramatic transformation never seen or recorded before. I am going to show you some coherent examples of the changes now taking place within our solar system. The data has been compiled from various scientific institutions, including NASA. This information has been publicly available for nearly a decade and includes actual statistics regarding these changes. This is data that is considered to be only the tip of the iceberg when referring to the continued changes occurring to the planets within the solar system. The planets are undergoing variations in their atmosphere. For example, the Martian atmosphere is getting sizably thicker, and Earth's moon is growing an atmosphere. And according to Dr. Alexei Dmitry, there is a 6,000 kilometer deep layer of natrium that wasn't there previously. He says that we're having this kind of change in the upper levels of Earth's atmosphere, where oxyhydrogen gas is forming that wasn't there before. It simply did not exist in the quantity that it does now. It's not related to global warming, and it's not related to fluorocarbon emissions or any of that stuff. It's just showing up. Magnetic fields and brightness of the planets are also changing. The planets are experiencing sizable increases in their overall luminosity. Venus, for example, is showing us marked elevations in its overall brightness. Jupiter has such a high energetic charge now that there is actually a visible tube of ionizing radiation that has formed between it and its moon. You can actually see the luminous energy tube in photographs that have been taken recently. In addition, the magnetic field strength of each planet has also increased. Uranus and Neptune appear to have had recent pole shifts. When the Voyager 2 space probe flew past Uranus and Neptune, the apparent north and south magnetic poles were sizably offset from where the rotational pole was. In one case, it was 50 degrees off, and in the other case, the difference was around 40 degrees, both of which are pretty big changes. The overall changes could essentially be broken down into three categories: energy field changes, luminosity changes, and atmospheric changes. Global climate change is increasing and intensifying rapidly everywhere. These headlines tell the story much better than I can. The worldwide weather patterns have gone into a crash and burn mode, both literally and figuratively. Every region of the world has now experienced a periodic and profound departure from their traditional weather norms since records have been kept. Global climate change does not accurately describe the planetary predicament. An ongoing worldwide atmospheric apocalypse does, manifesting as localized weather cataclysms, as these headlines would seem to indicate. So, is it possible that the incoming comet planet has hyperdimensional qualities? Carlos Ferrada has stated that Hercolubus travels at 300 kilometers per second for half of its orbit. He emphasizes that this is 1/1000th of the speed of light, as this video clip indicates.
Entonces acá usted en su gráfico nos presenta lo que es la estrella muerta o el sol muerto. En ese sol muerto él gira.
Aquí a 92 kilómetros por segundo.
Entonces, además de esos 92 kilómetros por segundo, él tiene otra velocidad, que es la más aterradora, ¿verdad? Que es la que se mueve muy rápido.
Tiene 3 velocidades, hombre. Lo máximo lo tiene en la mitad de la órbita, a 300 kilómetros por segundo. O sea, 1/1000º de la velocidad de la luz.
Eso es rápido.
Therefore, we can only assume that this particular heavenly body is quite literally a heavenly body, one that obeys a set of laws that can neither be defined by quantum mechanics nor theory of relativity. For the uninitiated, the esoteric field of hyperdimensional physics is still emerging from its infancy. It does, however, provide a quasi-geophysical context in which a celestial body of extraordinary size, mass, and speed can behave as a comet planet. Hyperdimensional physics accommodates many other inexplicable aspects of the solar system and anomalies throughout the Milky Way galaxy, which have eluded sound scientific explanation for decades. Likewise, there are countless other galactic phenomena which the current astronomy and astrophysics paradigms do not sufficiently illuminate or support. In light of these and many other inconsistencies found throughout the tenuous teachings of the academic establishment, it must be noted that the conventional wisdom has been found wanting in this regard. The whole subject matter is simply too controversial for the establishment to take up in any factual or meaningful way, and so it shall remain until the end of days. The gifted visionary Samuel Weor, in what is referred to as the Aquarian message, stated the following: "An unusual event is going to accelerate the process of swift change to the axis of the planet Earth. I am referring to the planet Hercolubus. This planet is 6 times bigger than the planet Jupiter. The planet Hercolubus belongs to the distant solar system of Tylo. The solar system of Tylo is rapidly approaching our solar system, and Hercolubus is rapidly approaching Earth. Modern astronomers have before their sight the planet Hercolubus, or as it is known by modern science, the Barnard star. This planet is a powerful giant that will pass through an angle of our solar system. When this happens, the revolution of the axis of the planet Earth will accelerate violently. Then the final catastrophe will occur. Some scientists believe that they will be able to push this monstrous planet away with nuclear explosions, but this will be useless. It will be impossible to push this tremendous mass of a planet out of the way with mere nuclear bombs. This same planet brought Atlantis to an end. Before Atlantis existed, it annihilated the existence of another continent. We know very well that the continent of Mu, or Lemuria, sank within the waters of the boisterous Pacific Ocean after 10,000 years of earthquakes and incessant volcanic eruptions. So when will the final shift occur? There is only one answer to this question. Those who reside at the very peak of the pinnacle of the New World Order know the answer. They have all been there before. According to the Cosmic Convergence Research Group, when scientific knowledge and applied technology reach a critical level of advancement without being informed by spiritual truths and guided by moral authority, the current civilization will relinquish its right to continue as it is. It is really that simple. This statement also captures the essence of why the timing is so difficult for anyone to pin down. Because those who direct the most consequential and far-reaching scientific research experiments in the solar system know exactly what they are doing. Of course, the highest power controls all, so the actual moment of truth will come like a thief in the night, as it always does. Since Hercolubus can behave as a hyperdimensional entity, it exists outside of the normally perceived parameters of our universe. It is, however, extremely impressionable and responsive. Were it to receive the frequencies which indicated that the misguided scientists have really crossed the line, it might just show up on our doorstep tomorrow. However, there are many ways in which to send the final message. Whether it shows up in the form of a huge red planet, also known as the Planet of the Crossing, remains to be seen. What is of greater interest to those of us who have watched this drama unfold is exactly where in our solar system the curtain will go up. During previous epochs, the show always began with the crossing place, or the place of transition, as the Akkadian name of Nibiru means. Whether the final shift will be triggered by the winged disk is really anyone's guess. However, because there is no doubt that the future of humankind lies in the balance, as does the fate of planet Earth, we are compelled to point out the following. The solar system and Milky Way galaxy have an elegant order and beauty. the outcomes of runaway applied science and unchecked applied technology do not always support this established order. In fact, there are numerous covert programs such as HARP and concealed NASA initiatives as described in Dark Mission, which fly directly in the face of an orderly universe. There are other signs on Earth and omens in the heavens that something very big is around the corner. And that is the number of man-made catastrophes which are engineered wittingly or unwittingly. For example, each of the past 6 years have brought to the planet an extraordinary event of truly historic and monumental proportions, as shown in this slideshow sequence. What is important to understand about each of these events is that they are all ongoing. The people on the Gulf of Mexico coastline will verify this, as will the whole country of Japan. So will the residents of the Jersey Shore. Likewise, the entire United States is just waiting for the next debt default doomsday date, and the endless cycle continues. So what's the point? There is something much bigger going on in the background which compels the powerful elites to completely ignore the real solutions to these and many other urgently pressing matters. At the same time, whenever they do respond, they seem to do so in a manner that guarantees an exasperation of the problems which humanity faces. Another perfect example of this willful neglect and ineffective remediation is the proliferation of space junk, especially junk which is powered with nuclear energy. Can you imagine that stuff is sent up into space which produces nuclear byproducts and or radioactive wastes? For instance, in 2005, at least 13 nuclear reactor fuel cores, 8 thermoelectric generators, and 32 nuclear reactors were known to be in Earth orbits below 1700 km. So where's it all going to go when those various satellites and probes and space weapons decide to come back to planet Earth? The final point is that much of that space junk is serving a vital purpose in the minds of the government elites. Tracking brown dwarfs, comets, planetoids, asteroids, large meteors, and comet planets is certainly now a huge priority for them. Apparently, the dangers posed by the free fall of any of this nuclear-powered junk must not compare to the benefits which they are accruing in the meantime from their global Spacewatch program. Perhaps their completely cavalier attitude and reckless response to so many things is a reflection of what really does matter to them at this very late date. Who could deny that a Hercolobus would fit the profile of such a grave and momentous concern? We can only conclude that the rapid and relentless weaponization of space, which has occurred since the Reagan years, may be less about controlling the territory below and more about eliminating threats from above, and that the Star Wars program, also known as the Strategic Defense Initiative, was actually conceived in anticipation of a war in the heavens, or with unwelcomed celestial intruders. With all of the aforementioned changes happening right in our own backyard, is it any wonder global climate change has taken the world by storm? As for the true cause of such pervasive, profound, and permanent changes, a Hercolubus in our neighborhood appears to be a very realistic possibility. Quite frankly, it might be better if humankind assumed that it is as real as our highly esteemed astronomer Carlos Ferrara has described it. In this way, the community of nations would get down to the business of respecting our precious planet, not competing for its every resource. We are concerned that if a concerted effort is not made in earnest, with haste and in good faith, our future will be much less pleasant. Always the people of the world have the inherent power to positively affect all of the outcomes that I have referred to in this presentation. The more we resonate with reverence for our planet, the quicker the message can be delivered to our celestial neighbors that we have relented in our harmful behavior. If ever there was a time to unite around a single cause, this is it. Once we exceed the point of no return, what will come cannot be stopped, nor can the severity be alleviated once the key dominoes start to fall. It's now less than a minute to midnight. The government elites have proven time and again that it would rather take the path of least resistance. Doing nothing is certainly the best way to not alert the public about these eventualities. They also know that the die has been cast many decades ago, and that their predecessors chose to chart a course which would be more and more difficult to change with each passing day. However, there is no question that the collective will and predominant intention of the human race has great power. So what shall we do? Individually, we can remain centered, grounded, and focused on what is really important in each moment. If nothing else, each of us can go within to find our strength, our courage, and our resolve to make it through and out the other side, happy, healthy, and whole. Truly going within during these challenging times and meditating on the supreme consciousness will guide us in our moments of greatest need. Their difficulty in convincing friends and family that something is appearing in the sky, that is on a trajectory that will bring it very close to the Earth. Their concern was primarily centered around the belief that as time passes and nothing happens, that the claims of an apocalyptic event will fall by the wayside, as such claims, at least on the surface, will prove to be outlandish and unrealistic by the people that this individual is earnestly trying to convince. In an effort to provide a bit of assistance to this individual, I began listing reasons why this planet or system of planets exists, and I've come up with a series of verifiable and realistic reasons for its existence that you, as an observer of the sky, can share with your neighbors and family. Regardless of the extent of their knowledge or their lack thereof, this can be a resourceful list that can be presented without being labeled as a crackpot. After publishing more than 70 videos on this subject, I thought that maybe it would be appropriate to provide my reasons why Nibiru, Planet X, is real, and how NASA has become an unwilling accomplice in verifying its existence. I'll start with the first one that comes to mind, and probably the most compelling argument for the existence of Planet X. You have heard me talk about this before, but for the sake of those who may be novice or inexperienced regarding this subject, let's be mindful of what has already been proven to be true. NASA announced to the world in 1983 that Planet X was on the fringes of our solar system. They said it was virtually knocking at our door. The story was covered on the front page of the Washington Post and the New York Times, two of the most prestigious newspapers in the world. Soon afterwards, then-President Ronald Reagan made the declaration part of the United States national security mandate, which in political terms means he made it illegal for astronomers, scientists, government agencies, and institutions of learning from speaking publicly of the crossing, and did this in their own language. One of the reasons why this is so convincing is that the Sumerians actually discovered Pluto and included it in their model of our solar system, which is in direct contradiction to the fact that our own astronomers didn't announce the discovery of Pluto until 1930. The other reason this is so convincing is that many of these civilizations have no correlation with one another, and their writings were from different time periods. And so common sense would tell you that their stories originated independently from one another. If you doubt this, then I would recommend that you read Zacharias Sitchin's books on Earth Chronicles. Now, for someone who has been labeled as a fraud or imposter by those who know absolutely nothing about this man's character, his books have sold tens of millions of copies worldwide and have been translated into more than 25 languages. This is quite an accomplishment for someone who some folks believe is a crackpot. If you have done any research, you may know why public and private astronomers alike are searching the sky for the elusive planet. In 1894, Percival Lowell, a wealthy American businessman, financed the building of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. Part of the Lowell Observatory's original mandate was to specifically look for the mysterious planet, thus establishing profound proof that America knew of its existence over 100 years ago. They searched the skies for over 30 years and thought they had found it in 1930. But it turned out to be what we call Pluto, and determined it wasn't large enough to be Planet X. This compelling piece of evidence is not widely known or talked about, but shows that certain groups within American society knew of this planet's existence and its potential for devastation. Although rarely talked about, the phenomenon of an increase in the Earth's wobble observed by the public worldwide is included in the top 5 reasons for its numbers of observations made by the public. Here's an important observation that has been about this discovery. He forced this mandate because he was convinced that the public would panic if they understood that a large planetary body was entering our solar system that had the potential to cause global cataclysms on an epic scale. He convinced other nations to follow suit, and it then became top secret information, where only bits and pieces were allowed to leak out to the public. There are many stories from ancient civilizations the world over that describe a large planetary body that returns to our solar system periodically, causing destruction in the form of superfloods, earthquakes, and volcanic activity. If you take the writings of the Sumerian world, considered the cradle of civilization, and compared them to the stories spoken by the Aborigines of Australia and the teachings of Holy Scripture with respect to wormwood, you will discover that each of these stories has a similarity that cannot be considered a coincidence. And here's why. The Sumerians were the people of Babylonia who actually named this planet Nibiru, or Planet of the